The announcement echoed through every vampire-controlled city on Earth, broadcast through blood-bound channels that reached from the ancient catacombs beneath Prague to the crystalline towers hidden in the heart of Manhattan. King Valerion Nightshade refused to take the throne unless the human woman stood beside him as his queen. Maya Foster had been working the late shift at the university library when her entire world shattered. One moment she was shelving books in the mythology section. The next she was being escorted by pale-skinned, white-haired beings who moved like smoke and spoke in voices that seemed to resonate in her bones. They told her she had been summoned by the Eternal Council, that her presence was required immediately, that refusal was not an option. She thought she was dreaming. She thought she had finally snapped from too many sleepless nights and too much coffee, but the cold air that hit her face when they transported her through some kind of portal was real enough. The massive underground chamber that materialized around her was real enough. The dozens of ancient vampires seated in a circular amphitheater, all with that same otherworldly beauty, those same luminous eyes and moon-pale skin, were terrifyingly real. And standing at the center of it all, refusing to sit upon the obsidian throne that seemed to pulse with dark power, was the most magnificent creature Maya had ever seen. Valerion Nightshade stood 6.5 feet tall, his body wrapped in a black coat that looked like it had been tailored in another century. His hair fell past his shoulders in waves of pure white, contrasting sharply with his porcelain skin. His eyes were the color of fresh blood, and when they locked onto Maya, she felt her breath catch in her throat. He looked like a fallen angel, like death itself had taken beautiful form, like every dark fantasy she had never allowed herself to admit. "This is unacceptable," one of the council members was saying, his voice tight with barely contained fury. "You cannot hold the entire vampire nation hostage over a human." "Can I not?" Valerion's voice was smooth, cultured, with an accent Maya couldn't quite place. It seemed to be from everywhere and nowhere at once. "I believe the laws are quite clear. The king chooses his queen. There is no provision that states she must be of vampire blood." "The law was written when such a choice was unthinkable," a female council member interjected. Her white hair was braided into an elaborate crown, her red eyes cold and calculating. "No vampire king in 3,000 years has chosen a human consort. Then I shall be the first." Valerion turned slightly, extending one long-fingered hand toward Maya. "Come here, little scholar." Maya's legs felt like water, but somehow she moved forward. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but something deeper, something she didn't understand, pulled her toward him. When her hand touched his, she gasped. His skin was cold, but not unpleasant. It felt like touching marble that had been left in the shade on a summer day. "What's happening?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Why am I here?" Valerion's expression softened slightly as he looked down at her. Up close, she could see flecks of deeper crimson in his eyes, could see the faint veins beneath his translucent skin. "Because 3 weeks ago, you walked into a vampire feeding ground without knowing it. Because when a newborn vampire lost control and would have killed 6 humans, you stepped between them with nothing but a can of pepper spray and a complete disregard for your own safety. Because when I arrived to contain the situation, you looked at me without fear and asked if everyone was all right." Maya's mind reeled back to that night. She had been cutting through an alley on her way home from work, had heard screams, had seen what she thought was a violent assault. The details were hazy now, dreamlike. She remembered pale figures, remembered blood, remembered a man with white hair who had appeared like a ghost and made everything stop with just his presence. "I thought I dreamed that," she said faintly. "We ensured you would think so. We have people who specialize in making humans forget what they have seen." Valerion's thumb traced a small circle on the back of her hand, an unconscious gesture that sent shivers up her arm. "But I could not forget you. I have walked this earth for 800 years, Maya Foster. I have seen empires rise and fall. I have watched humans live and die like mayflies, and in all that time, I have never met anyone who burned as brightly as you do." "This is madness," another council member declared, rising from his seat. "She is human. She will age. She will die. She will be my queen," Valerion interrupted, his voice cutting through the chamber like a blade. The temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. "Or I will walk away from this throne and let you all tear each other apart trying to decide who should sit upon it." The choice is yours." The silence that followed was deafening. Maya could feel the weight of dozens of immortal gazes upon her, could feel the rage and confusion and ancient pride warring in the room. She knew she should be terrified. She knew she should be demanding answers, demanding to go home, demanding to wake up from this impossible nightmare. But instead, she looked up at Valerion and asked, "Why me?" His expression transformed. The cold, regal mask slipped, and for just a moment, she saw something raw and vulnerable in his eyes. "Because when you looked at me that night, you did not see a monster. You saw someone who had saved lives. Because you thanked me." His voice dropped lower, almost wondering. "Do you know how long it has been since a human thanked me for anything other than sparing their life?" "That's not a reason to make someone a queen," Maya said, even as her heart hammered in her chest. "No," Valerion agreed, "but it is a reason to want to know someone. And in knowing you, I have found something I thought was lost to me forever." He turned back to the council, his hand still holding Maya's. "I have found someone who reminds me why we protect humanity in the first place. Someone who sees the world not as prey, but as something precious, something worth preserving." The female council member with the braided hair leaned forward. "And if we refuse? If we call your bluff and elect another king?" "It is not a bluff, Seraphine." Valerion's voice was quiet, but it carried absolute certainty. "I am the only remaining heir of the Nightshade line. I am the only vampire alive who is bonded with the crown of shadows. If you attempt to place it upon another head, it will kill them. You know this. You all know this." The council members exchanged glances, centuries of unspoken communication passing between them in seconds. Finally, an elderly vampire near the back spoke, his voice like dry leaves. "There are rituals that must be observed, protections that must be put in place. A human queen will be vulnerable in ways no vampire queen would be." "Then we will perform the rituals," Valerion said immediately. "We will establish every protection the old laws allow." "And what of the girl?" Seraphine's red eyes fixed on Maya. "Does she even want this? Or is this simply another example of vampire arrogance, assuming we can take what we want from the human world without consequence?" All eyes turned to Maya. Her mouth went dry. This was insane. This was impossible. She was a 24-year-old graduate student who lived in a studio apartment and survived on ramen and coffee. She was not queen material. She was not prepared to enter a world of immortal politics and blood magic and ancient power struggles. But when she looked at Valerion, when she saw the hope and determination in his eyes, something in her chest tightened. This was a creature who could compel humans with a glance, who could move faster than thought, who could probably snap her neck with one hand without effort. But he was standing in front of his entire government, making himself vulnerable, risking everything because of her. "I don't understand any of this," Maya said slowly. "I don't know your world. I don't know your laws. I don't know what being a queen would even mean." She took a shaky breath. "But I do know that what you did that night was brave. You saved people. And I know that anyone who would risk their throne for the sake of choice, for the sake of not forcing someone's hand, is someone worth knowing better." She looked directly at Seraphine. "I'm not saying yes to being a queen. I'm saying yes to having time to understand what that would mean, to understand him, to make a real choice." The council chambers erupted in murmurs. Valerion's hand tightened on hers, and when she glanced up, she saw something like wonder in his expression. "A trial period," the elderly vampire mused. "Allow the human time to adapt, to learn, to decide freely. It is not without precedent. When the old kings took consorts from rival houses, there was always a courtship period." "She is not vampire," Seraphine countered. "She cannot be left unprotected during this time. If word spreads that the future queen is human and unturned, every ambitious vampire in the world will see her as either a target or an opportunity. Then I will protect her." Valerion's voice left no room for argument. "She will stay in my domain, under my guard. No harm will come to her." "That is hardly neutral ground for her to make a free choice," another council member observed. "I will not compel her," Valerion said firmly. "I will not use any power to influence her decision. She will have access to the council, to neutral mediators, to whatever resources she needs to make an informed choice. But she will be safe. The debate raged on for what felt like hours. Maya stood there, still holding hands with the vampire king, listening to immortal beings argue about blood bonds and succession laws and ancient rituals she couldn't begin to understand. Her legs ached, her head spun. But Valerion never let go of her hand, and somehow that small point of contact kept her grounded. Finally, Seraphine rose from her seat. Very well. The council will grant a trial period of 3 lunar cycles. The human girl will remain under King-elect Valerion's protection. During this time, she will be educated in our ways, our laws, and our history. At the end of the 3 months, she will make her choice freely. If she accepts, the coronation will proceed with her at Valerion's side. If she refuses, Seraphine's gaze hardened. Then Valerion will step aside, and we will find another solution to the succession crisis. Agreed, Valerion said immediately. Wait, Maya interjected, finding her voice. What happens to me if I refuse? After 3 months, if I say no, do I just go back to my normal life? The silence that followed was answer enough. You know too much now, Seraphine said, not unkindly. You have seen the council chambers. You know our faces, our names, our procedures. We cannot simply release you back into the human world with that knowledge. Cold fear trickled down Maya's spine. So my choices are become a queen or die. Or be turned, another council member suggested. Made vampire yourself, but without the crown. You would live. You would be one of us, but you would not rule. Maya felt Valerion tense beside her. His voice, when it came, was deadly quiet. That is not an option. She will not be turned against her will. So protective already, Seraphine observed. Tell me, Valerion, is this love, or is this simply obsession? Valerion was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his words were measured. I do not know yet. I know only that I have existed for 8 centuries without feeling the pull I felt the moment I saw her. I know that when I close my eyes, I see her standing between humans and a newborn vampire without hesitation. I know that I want the chance to discover what this feeling is, and I know that I will not allow anyone to take that chance from us. Maya's heart hammered so hard, she was sure everyone in the chamber could hear it. She looked around at the immortal faces, at the ancient power contained in these walls, at the impossible situation she found herself in. Then she looked at Valerion, really looked at him, and saw past the regal bearing and the otherworldly beauty. She saw uncertainty. She saw hope. She saw someone who had lived for so long that feeling anything new was precious. 3 months, she said quietly. I'll give you 3 months, but I want some conditions. A ripple of surprise moved through the council. Valerion turned to face her fully, something like pride flickering in his crimson eyes. Name them. I want to be able to contact my family. I won't tell them where I am or what's happening, but I won't let them think I'm dead or missing. She lifted her chin, trying to project confidence she didn't feel. I want access to neutral parties, like you said, people who can tell me the truth about what this life would mean, and I want you to answer my questions honestly, all of them, no matter how uncomfortable. Done, Valerion said immediately. You agree very quickly for someone negotiating with the council watching, Seraphine noted dryly. Because she is right to ask for these things, Valerion replied, and because I meant what I said. I want her choice to be real. That only happens if she has all the information and all the freedom I can provide within the bounds of keeping her safe. Seraphine studied them both for a long moment, then inclined her head. Very well. Let it be recorded that the council agrees to these terms. 3 months, beginning tonight. Valerion Nightshade will serve as protector and guide. The human Maya Foster will be granted education and access. At the end of that time, we reconvene. The gavel came down with a sound like thunder, and suddenly Maya was being swept out of the chamber, Valerion's hand still firmly holding hers. They moved through corridors carved from stone, past guards with those same pale faces and crimson eyes, through doorways that seemed to shimmer with protective magic. Finally, they emerged into a massive chamber that took Maya's breath away. It was a throne room, but not like anything she had ever imagined. The ceiling soared overhead, lost in shadows. Pillars of black marble rose like trees, carved with intricate patterns that seemed to move in the flickering light of 1,000 candles. At the far end, the obsidian throne sat empty, waiting. But what caught Maya's attention were the windows. They looked out onto an impossible vista. It took her a moment to realize they were not windows at all, but massive screens showing live feeds from cities around the world. London, Tokyo, New York, São Paulo. Every screen showed the same thing: the sun setting, twilight descending, the vampire world waking. "Welcome to the Sovereign's Hall," Valerian said softly. "The heart of vampire government for the last millennium." Maya walked forward slowly, her footsteps echoing on the polished floor. "It's beautiful, terrible and beautiful. An apt description of my people as a whole." Valerian released her hand, and she immediately missed the cold comfort of his touch. "You must have 1,000 questions." "At least." Maya turned to face him. "Let's start with an important one. What exactly does being your queen mean? What would I actually do?" Valerian moved to stand beside her, looking out at the screens. "You would rule beside me. Every decision I make would be yours as well. Every law, every judgment, every treaty negotiation. You would be my equal in the eyes of our people." "But I'm human," Maya pointed out. "I'll age, I'll die. You said it yourself. I'm like a mayfly compared to you." "Yes." The word was heavy with unspoken pain. "Which is why, traditionally, a human consort would be offered the choice to turn, to become vampire themselves. But you said you wouldn't turn me against my will." "And I meant it." Valerian's jaw tightened. "The act of turning is intimate, invasive. It requires drinking a vampire's blood while standing on the edge of death. It is not something that should ever be forced. Many humans do not survive it even when willing." Maya absorbed this, her mind racing. "So if I chose to stay human, I'd be a queen who aged while you stayed young. I'd eventually die while you lived on." "Yes." He turned to her, his expression unguarded. "I will not lie to you, Maya. That thought terrifies me in ways I do not fully understand yet. But I would rather have 50 years with you as you are than eternity with a version of you that was turned against her will." The raw honesty in his voice made her chest ache. "You really mean that?" "I do." He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and tucked a strand of her dark hair behind her ear. His cold fingers lingered against her cheek. "You ask what being queen would mean. It would mean being my partner, my conscience, my reminder of what we protect and why. The vampire world is old, Maya. We forget sometimes what it means to be young, to be mortal, to burn bright and brief. You would remind us." "That's a lot of pressure," Maya whispered. "It is, which is why I am giving you 3 months to decide if it is pressure you want to bear." His thumb traced her cheekbone with surprising gentleness. "Come. You need rest, and I need to ensure your chambers are properly warded." He led her through more corridors, each one carved with increasing intricacy, until they reached a set of double doors inlaid with silver. Valerian pushed them open to reveal a suite that looked like something out of a fairy tale. The bedroom was dominated by a massive 4-poster bed, draped in dark velvet. Bookshelves lined the walls, stuffed with leather-bound volumes. A fireplace crackled with welcoming warmth. French doors led out to a balcony overlooking what appeared to be an underground garden, lit by some kind of artificial moonlight. "This is impossible," Maya breathed. "We're underground, aren't we? How is there a garden?" "Magic and technology working together." Valerian walked to the balcony doors, looking out. "We may be creatures of darkness, but we still crave beauty. This entire complex was built over 3 centuries. It exists in layers beneath the city, hidden from human eyes, protected by wards and modern security systems alike." Maya moved to stand beside him, looking out at the garden. Night-blooming flowers filled the space, their pale petals luminous in the false moonlight. "What city?" "Vienna. We are beneath the old city center, where the catacombs run deepest." He glanced at her. "There are 6 major vampire cities around the world, hidden beneath human population centers. Vienna is the oldest and serves as the council seat." 6 cities full of vampires," Maya said faintly. "How many of you are there?" "Approximately 50,000 worldwide. We are careful to maintain our numbers. Too many vampires and the blood supply becomes unstable. Too few and we risk exposure or extinction. He said it so matter-of-factly, discussing population control and blood supply like they were discussing the weather. Maya wrapped her arms around herself. You feed on humans. Yes. He did not look away from her, did not soften the truth. Though we have laws, strict laws, we do not kill our donors, we maintain blood banks, we have willing participants who supply us in exchange for payment or protection, and we punish severely any vampire who loses control or feeds illegally. Like the newborn that night, Maya said, remembering. The one who lost control. Yes, he was 3 months turned, still learning to manage his hunger. His sire should have been watching him more carefully. Both have been disciplined. Valerian's voice hardened. I do not tolerate recklessness with human life. But you still see us as food, Maya said quietly. We see you as necessary, as precious, as the reason we exist. He turned to face her fully. You want honesty? Here it is. Yes, we feed on human blood, but we also protect humanity from threats they do not even know exist. Rogue vampires who would slaughter indiscriminately. Other supernatural creatures who view humans as toys or tools. We maintain the balance because we need you, but also because many of us remember being human ourselves. We remember what it was to live in the light. Maya met his crimson gaze. You were human once. 800 years ago, I was a soldier, a knight sworn to protect my king during the Crusades. His voice took on a distant quality. I died in the desert with a blade through my chest, and I woke in darkness with a vampire lord offering me a choice. Die forever, or live forever. I chose life, or what passes for it in our world. Do you regret it? He was quiet for a long moment. I have regretted it many times over the centuries. The weight of years is heavier than you can imagine. Watching everyone you knew turn to dust, seeing the world change beyond recognition, feeling yourself become more and more disconnected from the human experience. He reached out, taking her hand again. Until 3 weeks ago, when a small human woman reminded me what courage looks like, what caring for strangers looks like, what burning bright means. Maya felt tears prick her eyes. I'm not special, Valerian. I'm just someone who couldn't walk away from people in danger. That is what makes you special. His voice was fierce. Most humans would have run. Most vampires would not have cared. But you stood your ground against a threat you could not possibly defeat, armed with nothing but pepper spray and conviction. That is the spirit I want beside me on the throne. That is the heart I want guiding our people. A knock on the door interrupted them. Valerion called out something in a language Maya did not recognize, and a female vampire entered carrying a tray. She had the same white hair and crimson eyes, but her features were softer, almost kind. Food for the human, she said in accented English, and fresh clothes. Lady Seraphine thought she might want something more comfortable then. She gestured vaguely at Maya's jeans and university sweatshirt. Thank you, Isolde, Valerian said. Maya, this is Isolde. She's volunteered to serve as your attendant during your time here. Isolde set the tray down on a small table and curtsied gracefully. It is an honor, Miss Foster. I hope you will feel comfortable asking me anything you need. The smell of food made Maya's stomach growl loudly. She realized she had not eaten since lunch, and that felt like a lifetime ago. Thank you, she managed. Isolde smiled. I will leave you to eat. Your bathroom is through that door, and I have prepared it with human amenities. If you need anything at all, simply press the button by the door, and I will come. When Isolde left, Valerian guided Maya to the table. The tray held soup, bread, cheese, and fruit, all looking fresh and appetizing. Eat, he said gently. You have had a tremendous shock tonight. You need your strength. Maya sat and began eating mechanically. The food was delicious, but she barely tasted it. Her mind was still reeling from everything that had happened. This is insane, she muttered. This morning I was worried about my thesis deadline. Now I'm eating dinner in a vampire palace underneath Vienna because an immortal king wants to make me his queen. I know it is overwhelming, Valerian said, taking a seat across from her. But I promise you, Maya, you will be safe here, and you will have time to adjust, to learn, to decide. What if I decide no? Maya asked, looking up at him. What if after 3 months I choose to walk away? Pain flashed across his features, quickly masked. Then you will be turned, as the council suggested, made vampire so that you can live without endangering our secrecy. You would be given a comfortable existence, a place in our society, but you would not be queen. So I lose my humanity either way, Maya said bitterly. Not necessarily. Valerion leaned forward. If you choose to be queen, you can remain human for as long as you wish. I will not force the turning. You would have the protection of the crown, enough that most vampires would not dare harm you. And when the time comes, if it comes, when you feel your age catching up to you and you want to continue at my side, then and only then would we discuss turning. Maya set down her spoon, her appetite fading. And if I choose to walk away and be turned, but not be queen, would I be allowed to leave, to see my family? Yes. Turned vampires can move freely in human society with training. You could see your family, though you would need to hide what you are, and you would age much more slowly, so eventually you would need to fake your death and disappear from their lives. He said it gently, but the words still landed like blows. So my choices are, be queen and have some protection but massive responsibility, or be turned and have some freedom but lose my family eventually either way. Maya felt tears threatening. Why does it feel like I've already lost everything? Valerion was beside her in an instant, moving too fast for her to track. He knelt beside her chair, taking both her hands in his. Because your life as you knew it has ended, and that is a grief I cannot spare you. I wish I could. I wish I had never pulled you into this world, but I cannot unknow you, Maya. And now that the council has seen you, they cannot simply let you go unchanged. I am sorry. Truly. A tear slipped down her cheek. Valerion reached up and caught it on his finger, staring at the droplet with an expression of wonder. It has been so long since I have seen human tears, he whispered. I forget how precious they are, how much it costs you to shed them. I'm scared, Maya admitted, her voice breaking. I know. He stood, pulling her up with him, and wrapped her in his arms. He was cold, his body like marble, but the embrace was gentle and steady. But I swear to you, Maya Foster, I will protect you with everything I am. I will give you all the time and space you need to make your choice, and whatever you decide, I will honor it. Maya let herself lean into him, let herself take comfort from this impossible creature who had upended her entire world. She cried into his chest while he held her, one hand stroking her hair, murmuring words in that ancient language she did not understand. Finally, when the tears subsided, she pulled back and wiped her eyes. I'm exhausted. Of course you are. It is nearly dawn in the human world above. Your body knows you should be sleeping. He guided her toward the massive bed. Rest. I will ward your chambers personally. Nothing and no one will disturb you. Maya climbed onto the bed, which was sinfully comfortable. Valerion pulled the velvet covers up around her, the gesture unexpectedly tender. Will you be here when I wake up? She asked sleepily. I will be near, he promised. I must attend to some council business during the day, but I will leave Isolde on guard, and when you wake, I will come. Valerion? Maya caught his hand as he turned to go. Thank you, for being honest, for giving me a choice, even a hard one. His expression softened. You are remarkable, Maya Foster. Sleep now. Tomorrow we begin your education. He moved toward the door, but Maya called out again. Wait, one more question. He turned back, patient. That night in the alley, you said I looked at you without fear, but I was terrified. I just didn't let it stop me. She met his eyes. Does that make a difference to you? Valerion was very still for a moment. Then a slow smile spread across his face, transforming his features from merely beautiful to absolutely devastating. It makes all the difference, little scholar. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is acting despite it. Sleep now. He left, the door closing silently behind him. Maya lay in the darkness, listening to her own heartbeat, wondering how her life had become a fairy tale, or maybe a nightmare. She was not sure which yet, but as she drifted off to sleep, she found herself thinking not of fear or loss, but of the way Valerion had looked at her, like she was precious, like she was hope itself. Maya woke to the soft sound of someone moving around her room. She bolted upright, momentarily disoriented by the unfamiliar surroundings, before memory came crashing back. The council, the throne, the choice. "Good evening, Miss Foster," Isolde said from near the fireplace, which now burned cheerfully. "I hope you slept well. It is 6 in the evening, Vienna time." Maya rubbed her eyes. "I slept for almost 12 hours? Your body needed it. The transition to our world is always exhausting for humans." Isolde gestured to a wardrobe that Maya had not noticed the night before. "I have selected some clothes for you. Nothing formal, just comfortable items for your first day of lessons." "Lessons," Maya repeated, climbing out of bed. Her body ached, but she felt more clear-headed than she had the night before. "Yaka, King-elect Valerion has arranged for you to meet with various tutors who will educate you about our world." Isolde opened the wardrobe, revealing an array of clothes that looked expensive and beautifully made. "But first, breakfast, or dinner, as it were for us." An hour later, bathed and dressed in soft black pants and a deep red sweater that Isolde assured her was appropriate, Maya found herself being led through the underground palace. They passed dozens of vampires, all of whom stopped and stared at her with expressions ranging from curiosity to hostility. Maya kept her chin up, refusing to show how much their attention unnerved her. They entered a dining room where Valerion sat at the head of a long table. He rose immediately when he saw her, and Maya was struck again by his otherworldly beauty. In the warm light of the room, his white hair seemed to glow, and his crimson eyes tracked her movements with predatory focus. "Maya, I trust you slept well?" He pulled out a chair beside his own. "Well enough, considering I'm living in a vampire palace under a city because an immortal king wants to marry me," Maya said dryly, taking the seat. A surprised laugh escaped Valerion, the sound rich and genuine. "Your spirit is intact, I see. Good. You will need it." He gestured, and servants brought out food. Human food, Maya noted with relief. Fresh pastries, fruit, eggs, coffee. "You're not eating?" she asked, watching him. "I do not eat food as you do, but I will sit with you. I find I enjoy watching you exist in the world." He said it so simply, without artifice. Maya felt her cheeks heat. "That's not creepy at all." Another laugh. "I suppose it is rather creepy by human standards. Forgive me. 800 years make one forget the niceties of courting." "Is that what this is? Courting? What would you call it?" He leaned back in his chair, studying her with those unsettling eyes. Maya considered while she ate a strawberry. "Blackmail with romantic undertones?" This time Valerion's laugh was loud enough to echo through the room. Several servants turned to stare in shock. "I like you," he said when he recovered. "You do not let me intimidate you." "Oh, you intimidate me," Maya corrected. "I just don't see the point in cowering about it." "Courage despite fear," Valerion murmured, "as you said last night." They ate, or rather Maya ate while Valerion watched, in a silence that was surprisingly comfortable. Finally Maya set down her fork and looked at him directly. "So what happens today?" "Today you begin learning what it means to be vampire. Our history, our laws, our culture. I have arranged for you to meet with Lady Seraphine first. She will teach you about the council and how our government functions." "The woman who seems to hate me?" Maya asked skeptically. "She does not hate you. She is simply protective of our people and wary of change." Valerion reached over and took Maya's hand, the gesture becoming familiar. "But she is also fair. She will tell you the truth, even when that truth is uncomfortable." "Wonderful," Maya muttered. Valerion's expression grew serious. "Maya, these next months will be difficult. You will learn things about us that may frighten you. You will see sides of our world that are dark and dangerous. But I need you to keep an open mind. We are predators, yes, but we are also people, complex, flawed, trying to survive in a world that would destroy us if it knew we existed." "I'll try," Maya said quietly. He lifted her hand to his lips, pressing a cold kiss to her knuckles. The gesture was old-fashioned and courtly, and it made Maya's heart skip. "That is all I ask." Seraphine met them in what appeared to be a library, shelves stretching from floor to ceiling and filled with books that looked ancient. The vampire woman sat at a massive desk, her white hair still braided into that elaborate crown. She looked up when they entered, her expression unreadable. "So the human girl comes for her lessons," Seraphine said, Leave us, Valerion. I would speak with her alone. Maya felt a flash of panic, but Valerion squeezed her hand reassuringly before releasing it. I will be nearby. You need only call. He left, closing the door behind him. Seraphine gestured to a chair across from her desk. Maya sat, trying not to fidget under that penetrating red gaze. You think I disapprove of you? Seraphine said bluntly. You made that pretty clear at the council meeting, Maya replied. A ghost of a smile touched Seraphine's lips. What I disapprove of is the situation, not you personally. But now that we are here, I will do my duty and educate you properly. She stood, moving to one of the bookshelves. Tell me what you know of vampire history. Only what's in human legends. Dracula, Nosferatu, that kind of thing. Legends based on truth, twisted by fear and imagination. Seraphine pulled down a leather-bound tome. Vampires arose approximately 10,000 years ago. We do not know if we were created by magic, by disease, by divine intervention, or simple evolution. What we know is that we have existed alongside humanity since the dawn of civilization. We have been worshipped as gods, hunted as demons, and everything in between. She opened the book to a page filled with illustrations of pale figures. We are made, not born. A human must be drained nearly to death and then fed vampire blood to turn. The process is agonizing, and many do not survive. Those who do rise as newborns, feral and hungry for the first months until they learn control. The one in the alley, Maya said. He was feral? He was losing his grip on his control. Yes, it happens. Which is why we have strict laws about siring. Every vampire who creates a newborn is responsible for that newborn's actions for their first year. Seraphine turned pages, showing Maya more illustrations. We are ruled by the Council of Elders, representatives from the oldest bloodlines, and above the council sits the monarch, the one who wears the crown of shadows and serves as our ultimate authority. Valerion, Maya said. The last of the Nightshade line, Seraphine confirmed. His family has ruled for 600 years. When his father and brothers fell to vampire hunters 50 years ago, Valerion became heir. But he refused the crown, went wandering the world instead, leaving us in governmental chaos. Until now. Maya leaned forward. Why did he refuse before? You would have to ask him. But I believe he was grieving. He was very close to his brothers. Seraphine's expression softened slightly. Valerion's a good man by vampire standards. He is strong. He is just. He cares about our people. But he is also 800 years old and lonely in ways I do not think he even recognizes anymore. And he thinks I can fix that? Maya asked skeptically. I think you remind him of who he was, before the turning, before the loss, before the weight of centuries. Seraphine closed the book. That is why I agreed to this trial period, even though every instinct tells me a human queen is folly. Because I have known Valerion for 400 years, and I have never seen him look at anyone the way he looks at you. Maya's throat tightened. I don't know if I can be what he needs. Then you must decide that in the next 3 months, Seraphine returned to her desk. Now, let us discuss vampire law and what would be expected of you as queen. The hours that followed were overwhelming. Seraphine walked Maya through centuries of legal code, blood laws that governed feeding and turning, territorial agreements between vampire cities, treaties with other supernatural creatures that apparently existed. Maya's head spun trying to absorb it all. Werewolves are real too, she asked faintly when Seraphine mentioned the London Pack. Werewolves, witches, fae, demons. We are far from the only supernatural creatures in the world. Seraphine pulled out another book. As queen, you would need to understand the treaties and relationships between all these groups. It is delicate politics. I'm a graduate student, Maya said, feeling panic rising. I study medieval literature. I'm not prepared for international supernatural politics. No one is ever prepared, Seraphine said calmly, but you would not be alone. Valerion would guide you, the council would advise, and you would have time to learn. The question is not whether you are prepared now, but whether you are willing to become prepared. Maya stared at the stack of books, feeling the weight of expectation crushing her. What if I'm not strong enough for this? Strength comes in many forms. Seraphine's voice was surprisingly gentle. You do not need to be strong like a vampire, Maya. You need to be strong like yourself. That is what Valerion sees in you. That is what we need." A knock on the door interrupted them. Valerion entered, his eyes immediately finding Maya. "Forgive the interruption, but it has been 5 hours. I thought Maya might need a break." "You are not wrong," Seraphine said dryly. "She has learned much today. We will continue tomorrow." Valerion helped Maya to her feet, steadying her when she swayed. "Come, I want to show you something." He led her through more corridors, up a winding staircase, until they emerged onto what appeared to be a rooftop garden. Except instead of sky above, there was a massive domed ceiling showing a projection of the night sky. Stars glittered overhead, constellations wheeling in their eternal dance. "It's beautiful," Maya breathed. "I had this built 200 years ago," Valerion said, guiding her to a bench beneath a flowering tree. "I missed seeing the stars. We can go above ground at night, of course, but there is always the risk of sunrise catching us exposed. Here, I can sit and remember what it was to look up at infinity." They sat together, and Maya found herself leaning against his shoulder. He was cold but solid, and after hours of overwhelming information, his presence was oddly comforting. "Seraphine taught you much today," Valerion said. "Too much. My brain feels like it's going to explode." Maya tilted her head back, looking at the false stars. "Did you really refuse the crown for 50 years? "Yes." His voice was quiet. "My father was killed by hunters, along with both my brothers. I was away at the time dealing with a territorial dispute in Asia. By the time I returned, they were ash. I could not bear the thought of sitting on that throne without them." "I'm sorry," Maya said softly. "It was 50 years ago. I should be past it by now." "Grief doesn't work on a timeline, even an immortal one, I'd guess." She turned to look at him. "Why did you decide to take the throne now?" His eyes met hers, and in them she saw a vulnerability that made her chest ache. "Because I met you. Because you reminded me that life, even immortal life, is meant to be lived rather than endured. Because when I held you in my arms last night while you cried, I felt something I have not felt in centuries. Purpose." "That's a lot of pressure to put on one person," Maya whispered. "I know, and if it is too much, tell me now and I will—" "No." Maya cut him off. "I'm not saying no. I'm just saying I'm scared of disappointing you, of not being enough, of losing myself in all of this." Valerion reached up, cupping her face with one cold hand. "You could never disappoint me, Maya Foster. You have already given me more than you know simply by being willing to try." His thumb brushed her cheek. "And I will not let you lose yourself. That fierce, brave, stubborn soul is what drew me to you. I would not change it for anything." Maya felt tears prick her eyes again. "I cry a lot, apparently." "You feel deeply. That is not weakness." He leaned closer, his breath cool against her skin. "May I kiss you?" Maya's heart hammered. She knew she should say no, should keep distance, should not complicate this already impossible situation. But looking into his eyes, seeing the hope and desire there, she found herself nodding. His lips touched hers, cold and gentle. The kiss was chaste, almost reverent, but it sent electricity through her entire body. He tasted like winter nights and ancient magic, like danger and safety all at once. When he pulled back, his eyes had darkened to deep crimson. "Thank you," he murmured. "For what?" "For giving me a moment of perfection in an imperfect existence." They sat together under the false stars, and Maya felt the world shifting around her. This was insane. This was impossible. But somehow, it was also becoming real. The next weeks fell into a rhythm. Maya spent her days in lessons, learning vampire history from Seraphine, blood law from an elderly vampire named Matthias, combat training from a fierce warrior named Katerina, who insisted a queen must know how to defend herself. Her nights were spent with Valerion, walking through the underground gardens, talking about everything and nothing, slowly learning each other. She learned that he loved poetry and could recite verses in a dozen dead languages. She learned that he had traveled to every continent, that he had witnessed the rise and fall of empires, that he still mourned for the human life he had lost centuries ago. She learned that despite his cold skin and predatory nature, he was capable of surprising gentleness and unexpected humor. And he learned her. He asked endless questions about her childhood, her family, her dreams. He wanted to know her favorite books, her secret fears, the things that made her laugh. He listened to her talk about her thesis on medieval romance literature with genuine interest, asked insightful questions, discussed the texts with the perspective of someone who had lived through those eras. "You realize you're basically a primary source," Maya said one evening as they walked through a gallery filled with paintings. "You lived through the medieval period. You could tell me what it was really like." "It was muddy, disease-ridden, and everyone smelled terrible," Valerian said dryly. "But there was also beauty. Honor meant something. Words were bonds. People lived close to the earth and close to each other in ways your modern world has forgotten." "Do you miss it?" "Sometimes. But I would not trade the progress humanity has made. Medicine, technology, social change. The world is better now in many ways, even if it has lost some of its poetry." He stopped in front of a painting of a sunset. "I miss the sun most, I think. I remember how it felt on my skin. Warm. Life-giving." Maya slipped her hand into his. "I'm sorry you lost that." "I gained other things." He squeezed her fingers. 800 years of existence, the ability to protect those who need protecting, and, recently, the company of a remarkable woman who makes eternity feel less lonely. These quiet moments between them were interspersed with harder lessons. Maya attended council meetings, watching vampire politics play out with all their ancient complexity. She met representatives from other vampire cities, some of whom treated her with curiosity, others with barely concealed disdain. She learned about the darker side of vampire existence, the blood banks and feeding houses, the laws that governed killing and turning, the punishments for those who broke covenant. One night, 6 weeks into her stay, she witnessed an execution. A vampire had killed a human outside the bounds of the feeding laws, draining them completely and leaving the body in public where it would be found. It was a direct violation of their most sacred rule: maintain the secret of vampire existence. Maya stood beside Valerian in a large chamber while the accused was brought forward. The vampire was young, maybe 200 years old, and he showed no remorse. "The human saw my face," he snarled, "saw what I am. I had no choice." "You had many choices," Seraphine said coldly from her council seat. "You could have compelled her to forget. You could have left and disappeared. You could have come to the authorities. Instead, you killed and you were careless. The human police are investigating. You have endangered us all." The sentence was death, immediate and final. Maya watched as they brought out a wooden stake and silver chains. She wanted to look away but forced herself to watch. This was part of the world she was considering joining. She needed to see its darkness as well as its light. When the stake went through the vampire's heart, he crumbled to ash in seconds. Final. Absolute. Maya managed to hold herself together until they returned to her chambers. Then she collapsed onto her bed, shaking. Valerian sat beside her, not touching, but present. "I'm sorry you had to witness that." "He killed someone," Maya said, her voice hollow. "He murdered a woman and didn't care." "Yes." Valerian did not sugarcoat it, "and we killed him for it. This is our justice, Maya, swift and absolute. We cannot afford to be lenient when our very existence depends on secrecy." "I understand why." Maya looked up at him with tear-filled eyes. "But it doesn't make it easier to watch." "It should never be easy," Valerian said firmly. "The day we take death lightly is the day we become monsters in truth." He finally reached out, pulling her into his arms. "If you choose to be queen, this will be part of your burden. You will have to make these decisions, order these punishments. Can you bear that?" Maya thought about the woman who had died, about her family who would never know the truth. She thought about the vampire who had thrown away centuries of existence for a moment of carelessness. She thought about the responsibility of keeping an entire species safe while also protecting humanity. "I don't know," she admitted, "but I'm starting to understand why it matters, why the laws exist, why you need someone to help carry the weight." Valerian held her tighter. "You are stronger than you know, Maya Foster." As the weeks passed, Maya found herself falling. Not just for Valerian, though his constant attention and genuine affection were wearing down her defenses, but for the vampire world itself. She loved the libraries with their ancient texts, loved the underground gardens with their impossible beauty, loved the way vampire culture blended old-world formality with modern innovation. She made friends, tentatively. Isolde became more than an attendant. They talked for hours about human and vampire life. Katerina, the combat trainer, developed a grudging respect for Maya's determination to learn self-defense. Even Matthias, the ancient lawkeeper, seemed to warm to her when she asked intelligent questions about blood rights. But there were enemies, too. A faction of vampires led by a noble named Draven believed that humans had no place in vampire government. He did not attend council meetings where Maya was present, but she heard whispers about his opposition, his followers, his threats. He is a purist, Seraphine explained during one of their lessons. He believes vampires should rule over humans, not beside them. Your presence as potential queen offends everything he stands for. Is he dangerous? Maya asked. Potentially, but Valerion is stronger, and Draven knows the council would not support an open rebellion. Seraphine's expression was troubled, though. Still, be careful. Do not wander the palace alone. Always have guards. Maya followed this advice, but she chafed at the restriction. She was used to independence, to moving freely through the world. Being constantly watched and guarded felt suffocating. One evening, 10 weeks into her stay, she slipped away from her guards while they were distracted. She just wanted to walk alone for a few minutes, to have space to think. She wandered through corridors she had not explored before, going deeper into the palace complex. She realized her mistake when she found herself in a dark hallway with no idea how to get back. And that was when they appeared. 3 vampires, all with hostile eyes. The leader was tall and aristocratic, his white hair pulled back in a severe style. Draven, she realized with a spike of fear. The little human queen, he said, his voice dripping with disdain. Wandering alone, how careless. Maya backed up against the wall, her hand automatically going to the panic button Valerion had given her, but Draven moved faster, knocking it from her hand. It skittered across the floor, out of reach. We mean you no harm, Draven said, though his smile was cruel. We simply want to talk. To explain why your presence here is an insult to everything we are. If you have concerns, bring them to the council, Maya said, trying to keep her voice steady. The council is compromised by their affection for Valerion. They do not see clearly. He stepped closer, and Maya could feel the cold radiating off him, could see the predatory gleam in his eyes. You are human, weak, temporary. You do not belong on the throne beside an immortal king. That's for the king to decide, Maya shot back, channeling every bit of courage she had. And for me. Brave words. Draven reached out, his cold fingers touching her throat. But your heart races. Your blood sings with fear. You are prey, little human. You will always be prey to us. The temperature in the hallway dropped 20 degrees. Draven jerked back, and Maya saw Valerion materialize from the shadows, moving faster than thought. He put himself between Maya and Draven, and the rage rolling off him was terrifying. You dare, Valerion said, his voice barely above a whisper, but more threatening than any shout. You dare touch her. I meant no harm, Draven said quickly, backing up. I was simply... You were threatening the future queen. You were touching her without permission. You were using your presence to intimidate and frighten. Valerion's eyes were incandescent with rage. Give me one reason I should not end you where you stand. Valerion, wait. Maya's voice cut through the tension. She stepped around him, placing herself between the 2 vampires. He was scaring me, yes, but he didn't actually hurt me. You defend him? Valerion asked incredulously. No, but I don't want bloodshed over words. Maya looked at Draven. You think I'm not strong enough for this world? Maybe you're right, but I'm learning, and I'm not backing down because you tried to intimidate me. Draven stared at her, something like surprise flickering in his eyes. Leave, Valerion commanded, and if you ever come near her again without my permission, I will not be merciful. Draven and his companions vanished into the shadows. Valerion turned to Maya, his expression transforming from rage to concern. Are you hurt? No, just scared. She was shaking now that the danger had passed. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have left my guards. No, you should not have. He pulled her into his arms, holding her so tightly she could barely breathe. You could have been killed. Do you understand that? He could have snapped your neck in an instant. But he didn't. Maya pulled back to look at him, because even the vampires who hate the idea of me still respect your authority, your power. My power means nothing if I cannot keep you safe. His voice cracked slightly. Maya, if anything happened to you. She reached up, cupping his cold face in her warm hands. I'm okay. I'm here. I'm safe. He closed his eyes, leaning into her touch. You are precious beyond measure. Do you know that? In 800 years, I have never feared anything the way I fear losing you. Then maybe you should turn me. Maya heard herself say, if I'm turned, I'd be harder to kill. I'd be stronger. I could defend myself. His eyes snapped open. You would choose that? Immortality? Giving up the sun? Giving up your humanity? Maya realized with surprise that she had already made her choice, probably weeks ago. I choose you, Valerion. I choose this world you've shown me. I choose standing beside you and trying to make a difference. And yes, I choose to be turned so that I can actually survive long enough to do all that. Joy and fear warred on his face. The turning is dangerous, painful. You might not survive. Then I'll survive because I'm stubborn. She managed a shaky smile. You said it yourself. I stood against a newborn vampire with pepper spray. I think I can handle this. He kissed her then, deep and desperate, his cold lips claiming hers with an intensity that stole her breath. When he pulled back, his eyes were blazing. Are you certain? Truly? I'm certain. Maya felt peace settle over her. I want to be your queen, Valerion, your partner, your equal, and for that, I need to be vampire. He rested his forehead against hers. Then we will do this properly, before the council, with every protection and ritual the old laws provide. I will not lose you to a careless turning. The next evening, Maya stood before the council once again, but this time she did not feel like a frightened human dragged into an impossible world. She felt like someone making a choice, claiming her own destiny. I have made my decision, she told the assembled vampires. I choose to accept Valerion's offer. I will be turned, and I will stand as his queen. Murmurs rippled through the council. Seraphine leaned forward. You understand what you're choosing? The pain of the turning, the loss of your human life, the weight of the crown? I do. Maya's voice was steady. I've spent 10 weeks learning your world. I've seen your beauty and your darkness. I've seen the responsibility that comes with the throne, and I've seen how much good can be done by someone who remembers what it means to be human while having the power to protect humans. I want to be that person. And you love him, Seraphine said softly. Maya looked at Valerion, who stood beside the throne, watching her with such hope and affection that her heart ached. Yes, I love him. That's probably insane, falling in love with a vampire king in 10 weeks. But I do. Valerion crossed to her in 3 long strides, taking her hands. And I love you, Maya Foster. Your courage, your compassion, your stubborn refusal to be intimidated by things that should terrify you. I love the way you ask endless questions and the way you cry at vampire executions because you still feel the weight of every death. I love your humanity, and I swear I will help you hold on to it even as you become vampire. Well, said the elderly Matthias with a dry chuckle. I believe that settles the question of whether this is mere obsession. The boy is besotted. Then we proceed with the turning, Seraphine declared. Per ancient law, a human who chooses freely to become vampire and take the throne must undergo the royal turning ritual. It has not been performed in over 1,000 years. The preparations took 3 days. Maya spent that time with Valerion, memorizing his face, his voice, his presence. She wrote letters to her family that would be delivered after she was turned, explaining that she had met someone and was starting a new life. Not the truth, but close enough. Will it hurt? She asked him the night before the ritual. They were in his private chambers, lying together on his bed. He had been reluctant to bring her to his rooms, worried about propriety, but she had insisted. If she was going to die tomorrow and maybe come back as something different, she wanted to be close to him. Yes, he admitted, stroking her hair. The turning is agony. Your body will die, then fight to live again. Every cell will burn and remake itself, but I will be with you. My blood will guide you through. And when you wake, you will be something new, something eternal. Will I still be me? It was the question that had haunted her. Your memories will remain, your personality, your soul, if such things exist. He tilted her face up to look at him. But you will also change, become sharper, colder, more predatory. It is the nature of what we are. I cannot promise the transition will be easy. Nothing about this has been easy, Maya pointed out. Why start now? He kissed her, slow and deep. They had kissed many times over the past weeks, but always with restraint, always aware of the boundary between them. But tonight, that boundary felt less important. Tonight might be their last night together, as human and vampire. Stay with me, Maya whispered against his lips. Tonight, I don't want to be alone. You have never been alone, he murmured. Not since the moment I saw you. They made love that night, and if his body was cold and his touch otherworldly, it was also achingly tender. He treated her like something precious, something to be cherished. And when she fell asleep in his arms, she felt safer than she had ever felt in her life. The ritual took place in the deepest chamber of the palace, a room carved from black stone and inscribed with symbols Maya did not recognize. The entire council attended, along with dozens of elder vampires who wanted to witness this historic moment. Maya wore a white gown that Isolde had helped her into, something between a wedding dress and a funeral shroud. Her hair was unbound, flowing down her back. She felt like a sacrifice in an ancient rite, which was not far from the truth. Valerion met her at the center of the chamber, dressed in black with a crown of silver resting on his white hair. He looked every inch the king he was about to become. "Are you ready?" he asked softly. "No," Maya admitted, "but let's do this anyway." The ritual was conducted in a language Maya did not speak, but the meaning was clear enough. Valerion made an incision in his wrist, his blood welling dark and potent. Maya was laid upon a stone altar, surrounded by candles and guarded by ancient magic. "Drink," Valerion commanded, offering his wrist to her lips. She drank, and his blood was cold fire sliding down her throat. It burned and froze simultaneously, and she could feel it spreading through her veins like liquid darkness. Then, Valerion's fangs sank into her throat, and the world became pain. She had been warned, but nothing could have prepared her for this. It felt like dying, because she was dying. He drank deeply, draining her life away, and all she could do was hold onto his shoulders and try to remember why she had chosen this. Her heart slowed, stopped. The world went gray, then black. And then, in the darkness, she felt something ignite. The blood she had drunk, Valerion's ancient powerful blood, began to work. It spread through her dead body like wildfire, remaking every cell, transforming her from human to something else. The pain intensified beyond anything she had ever imagined. She screamed or tried to, but her lungs did not work. She was caught between life and death, her body warring with itself, trying to decide whether to rise or remain still forever. She felt Valerion's presence, his blood bond connecting them, his voice in her mind. "Fight, Maya. Come back to me. Fight for life." So she fought. With every ounce of will she possessed, she fought to live. She clung to the memories of the past weeks, to the feel of his kiss, to the promise of eternity together. She refused to let death claim her, and slowly, impossibly, she won. Her heart beat once, twice, a new rhythm, slower than human, but steady. Her lungs filled with air she did not strictly need but took anyway out of habit. Her eyes opened. The world looked different. Colors were sharper, sounds were louder, she could hear every heartbeat in the room. The vampires no longer appeared pale to her eyes, they looked normal. But she could smell their individual scents, could sense the power thrumming through their veins. And Valerion, kneeling beside the altar with his wrist still bleeding, looked more beautiful than ever. "Maya." His voice was tentative, hopeful, terrified. She sat up and the movement was effortless in a way it never had been before. Her body felt strong, powerful, perfect. "I'm here," she said, and her voice sounded different too, clearer, with a resonance that echoed in the stone chamber. He pulled her into his arms, and for the first time his cold did not feel cold. They were the same temperature now, two creatures of the night holding each other while the council looked on. "You survived," he breathed against her hair, My brave, stubborn Maya, you survived. She pulled back to look at him, and she could see so much more now, could see the relief and love written in every line of his face, could sense the blood bond between them humming with life. We survived, she corrected. Together. Seraphine stepped forward, holding a silver circlet studded with rubies. Then let it be known that Maya Foster has died, and Maya Nightshade has risen. Let it be known that the turning is complete, the choice is made, and the throne has its queen. The coronation that followed was a blur of ancient words and formal rituals. Valerion took his seat upon the obsidian throne, the crown of shadows manifesting above his head like darkness made solid. And Maya, her body still adjusting to its new nature, stood beside him as Seraphine placed the queen's circlet upon her head. I present to you Valerion Nightshade, king of the eternal night, and his queen consort Maya Nightshade, Seraphine declared. Let all vampire kind recognize their authority. Let all enemies tremble. The throne is claimed, and the bloodline continues. The assembled vampires bowed, even those who had opposed Maya's rise, because she was one of them now, and vampire law was absolute. The celebration lasted 3 nights. Maya met vampires from across the world, drank blood for the first time from willing donors in the feeding houses, and slowly learned to control her new strength and senses. Valerion never left her side, guiding her through each new experience with patience and love. On the 4th night, when the palace had finally quieted and they were alone in their shared chambers, Maya stood on her balcony looking out at the underground garden. She could see every detail now, could smell each individual flower, could hear the artificial water features and the guards patrolling below. "Regrets?" Valerion asked, coming to stand behind her and wrapping his arms around her waist. Maya leaned back against him, marveling at how perfectly they fit together now. "Not one," she said honestly, "though I do miss the sun already." "I know." His voice was full of understanding. "That loss never goes away entirely. But we have stars and moonlight and centuries to explore every shadow the world has to offer." "And each other," Maya added. "And each other," he agreed, turning her in his arms to look at her. "My queen, my partner, my unexpected miracle." "I'm still going to argue with you about policy decisions," Maya warned. "Just because I love you doesn't mean I'll always agree with you." "I would be disappointed if you did not." He grinned, an expression of pure joy that transformed his face. "I did not choose you to be a decorative queen, Maya. I chose you to challenge me, to keep me connected to humanity, to remind me why our laws exist." "Then I guess you got what you wanted," she said. "I got far more than I wanted. I got everything I needed without knowing I needed it." They kissed under the false stars, 2 vampires bound by blood and love and the weight of a crown. And Maya thought about the scared human girl who had been dragged before the council just 12 weeks ago, who could never have imagined choosing this life. But she had chosen it, had chosen him, had chosen to become something new so that she could stand beside him as an equal and make a difference in this hidden world. In the months that followed, Maya proved herself as queen. She established new laws protecting human donors, created educational programs to help newborn vampires adjust, and opened diplomatic channels with other supernatural communities. She brought a human perspective to vampire governance, and slowly, even the skeptics began to see the value in having a queen who remembered mortality. Draven and his followers eventually bent the knee, recognizing that Maya was not a weakness, but a strength, that her humanity made the throne more legitimate, not less, that Valerion's choice had been wise, but more than the politics, more than the laws and treaties and governance, Maya found happiness. She and Valerion ruled together, argued together, explored their bond together. They traveled the world, visiting every vampire city, showing a united front. They spent long nights in their private chambers, talking about everything from ancient history to modern philosophy, making love and making plans for the future. 5 years into her reign, Maya stood before the council once more to deliver a report on human-vampire relations. As she spoke, outlining new protections and partnerships, she caught Valerion's eye. He sat upon his throne watching her with such obvious pride and affection that it made her heart swell. When the session ended and they were finally alone, he pulled her into his arms. "You are magnificent," he murmured. I knew you would be. But watching you command the council's respect, watching you fight for both our people and humans with equal passion, I fall in love with you more every night." "Only at night?" Maya teased. "We sleep during the day, so it is difficult to fall in love then," he pointed out reasonably. She laughed, the sound echoing through the throne room. "I love you too, you impossible, dramatic, ancient vampire king. Thank you for refusing that throne unless I sat beside you." "Thank you for being brave enough to climb up here with me," he countered. They stood together in the empty throne room, king and queen, vampire and former human, partners in every sense of the word. Outside, the human world spun on, oblivious to the supernatural powers that moved in the shadows. But in the hidden cities beneath the earth, in the courts of the eternal night, change was happening. Change brought by a graduate student who had stumbled into danger and stayed for love. Change brought by a vampire king who had refused to rule alone. Change that would ripple through their world for centuries to come. Maya looked at her husband, her king, her partner, and smiled. "What's next? What other impossible things shall we accomplish together?" Valerion smiled back, fangs glinting in the candlelight. "Everything, my love. We have eternity to figure it out." And in the darkness beneath Vienna, in a palace carved from stone and magic and hope, the vampire king and his human-turned-vampire queen began their forever. The council had been right to accept Valerion's demands, because in doing so they had gained not just a king, but a queen who would help guide their people into a new era. The throne was no longer a place of isolation, but of partnership, and that made all the difference. In the end, Valerion had been right to refuse the throne, unless Maya sat beside him. Because some things are worth waiting for, some things are worth fighting for, and some people are worth crossing the divide between mortality and eternity to claim. Maya Foster had become Maya Nightshade, and in doing so had transformed not just herself, but an entire civilization. All because a vampire king looked at a human woman standing between danger and innocence and saw not prey, but hope. And she looked back at him and saw not a monster, but a person worth knowing, worth loving, worth sharing eternity beside. The council had truly had no choice, because when love and destiny align, when two souls find each other across impossible divides, not even ancient vampire politics can stand in the way. They ruled together for centuries, their love story becoming legend among vampire kind. The king who refused his crown for love, the human who chose immortality to stand beside him. The partnership that changed everything. And every night, when they stood together looking out at their kingdom, they remembered. They remembered the scared girl in the council chambers, the lonely king seeking purpose, the choice that changed both their worlds. Some love stories are written in the daylight, celebrated in sunshine and warmth, but theirs was written in shadow and starlight, in cold kisses and eternal promises. And it was no less beautiful for existing in darkness. It was, perhaps, even more precious, because they had chosen each other against all odds, against all logic, against the weight of centuries and the divide between life and death. Valerion had refused the throne unless she sat beside him, and Maya had chosen to rise from death itself to claim that seat. Together, they proved that love could bridge any divide, even the one between human and vampire, mortal and immortal, light and shadow. The council had been wise to accept their terms, because in doing so, they had gained something their people had not had in millennia. Hope for a future where different worlds could not just coexist, but intertwine. Where strength came not from isolation, but from partnership. And it all started because one vampire king looked at one human woman and decided she was worth everything, worth waiting for, worth changing the world for. Maya would spend eternity grateful that he had made that choice, and grateful that she had been brave enough to make hers in return. In the courts of the eternal night, beneath the cities of the waking world, the king and his queen ruled with wisdom and love, and their story became the story whispered to newborn vampires, the tale that reminded their people why they protected humanity rather than preyed upon it. Because sometimes, in the most unexpected moments, a human and a vampire can find each other, can see past the surface to the soul beneath, can choose love over fear, partnership over power, together over alone. Valerian had refused the throne unless Maya sat beside him, and in doing so, he had given both of them the greatest gift of all, a love that transcended death itself, a partnership that would endure for eternity, and a reminder that even creatures of darkness need light to truly see. Their story was complete. Their choice was made, their forever had begun, and in the end, that was all that mattered.